What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode with Shaping the Culture, and we got a special guest today. This is a hero of mine, somebody that I've looked up to for years, grew up listening to his music. I would not be who I am without this guy. We've got Grammy Award-winning, Jesus-loving Lecrae with us today on Shaping the Culture. How you doing, bro?
I'm wonderful, man. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Much love.
In one of your songs, I think "Always Knew," you had a line where you said, "S1 introduced me to Jay-Z. Never met my dad, but I met the music that raised me." And this is kind of how it feels for me. I knew my father, but I'm meeting the music that raised me.
Oh wow, that's dope.
Yeah, man, just like in a lot of ways, from your music to like just the whole label, your interviews, your social media platform, you've helped me navigate a lot of different topics and tough conversations. And
Wow.
We talk about shaping the culture, but you've helped shape my culture in understanding God. And so, it's a real honor to have you.
I feel very privileged.
Yeah,
man. Slightly privileged, slightly old. It's all good.
You've been in it for a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
For sure. I wanted to ask you this. So on Shaping the Culture, we're really big on talking about what it looks like to engage the culture. In order to shape the culture, you got to be in culture. And something I've really appreciated with your career and what you're doing is you haven't shied away from culture. You've been in it and you've been a light in it. And so I wanted to kind of ask, I'm a huge fan of The Breakfast Club. And I remember years ago when you got on there, I was like, oh my gosh, Lecrae's on The Breakfast Club. Because you always talk with friends like, man, I wonder what would happen if a Christian was in that sphere, if a Christian was on that platform, and give a different perspective. And just to see you kind of champion our faith in those platforms has been dope. So what has that been like for you to kind of be in the culture, be in the world but not of the world, and really represent your light in a dying world?
Yeah, it's honestly it was initially really, really difficult, just because people didn't have a category for you. And I think we love categories. We love to be able to easily pinpoint and slot a person and just have them figured out. And I think in those places and spaces, you only know what you've been exposed to. It's kind of like, your ethnic heritage is Ethiopian. And if people have only had kind of like slim experiences with Ethiopians, they just put all of that on you and expect you to kind of be that. And so that was really difficult initially, and then I just kind of stayed the course and was hell bent on making sure that I was authentically myself, even if I was misunderstood. And over time, people got it. Over time, it's almost like you created a new category. And so it was difficult, but it's definitely paid off in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you think it is important? Maybe the listener that is listening is not a rapper, but they're a school teacher, or they're a lawyer, or they're an athlete. Why is it important for them to be a light in whatever context that they find themselves in, and not be this undercover Christian?
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, if I'm an ambassador for a country, I'm there to represent my country. I'm there for people to see all the facets and the ins and outs of my country. They're gonna know about my customs, my dress, my views, because I'm an ambassador. I'm not a spy. And so there's nothing to hide if you're proud of your country. And I'm very, very proud to be, a son of God Most High. So there's nothing to hide. I feel I'm an ambassador, so it's not as if I have to parade myself around like a spy. There's countless other world religions where as soon as you see them, you know what religion that they subscribe to, or how they get down. And so for me, I feel like if I'm supposed to be marked by love, then let me be that. And that's transformative. That helps people, that heals people. And I don't do them any justice by kind of pretending I'm something that I'm not. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Your last project you did, Let the Trap Say Amen, with Zaytoven. Why did you feel like it was important to put out that record?
Here's the thing. I think oftentimes Christians, if they're not critiquing or condemning, they're just copying what culture does instead of creating culture.
Yeah.
And so I sat around and I was like, this is what I listen to. You know, this is what I appreciate. Yeah. So why would I not engage in it? And I know people had a problem with that. Like, yo, this is Zaytoven. He's like the trap's godfather, and he works with all the drug rap and all the trap rap. But for me, it was more about painting a picture that there's authentic, faith in the trap. Like I worked in the trap, I lived in the trap, and I saw God move. I saw God do things. And so to say that the two are, mutually, exclusive is not true. So for me, it's just closing a lot of gaps and helping people wrestle with nuance and see that we are very dynamic human beings, and that there's a lot more to us than just what you would kind of see in a movie. Even our depictions in film and television, I think is still stagnant. It hasn't grown. Whenever there's a Christian, it's kind of like it's the corrupt pastor, or it's the it's just these caricatures, and not different perspectives, not different vantage points and viewpoints. So
and I'm assuming it's probably refreshing for them to see somebody like you to kind of give them a new framework for the faith, or
absolutely
a different perspective.
Absolutely.
So you put out Let the Trap Say Amen, and you said you got an album on the way. And so I kind of wanted to ask, what is this album about? What was the motivation behind it? What got you writing again?
I mean, anybody who knows kind of like my history over the last 4 years has seen my wrestle with the church, my wrestle with specifically like American Christianity, and the religiosity and the legalism that is that, and the implicit bias and racism that exists within it as well. And so, as I was going down that hill and trying to address those things, I was really kind of shocked that it existed within the church. You know what I mean? So it turned me off so bad that I just didn't have any motivation. I was demotivated. I was just kind of like, what's the word? Where I was just bewildered. You know what I mean? I was just like, wow. Yeah. So it took me time to heal. It took me time to find my footing. It took me time to find God outside of the religious institutions that we had set up in America. And so in that time period, I really felt like my soul, my mind, my heart, my faith, and my relationship with God was restored. And so I wanted to write an album just depicting and helping people walk through that restoration. And so actually that's the name of the album, is Restoration. Just because it was something that I personally experienced.
That's so dope. Something that was like unique to your story is you had to kind of wrestle through this in the public eye. What was that like, with the critique, with the comments on Instagram, with the tweets, as you're trying to figure this out, as you're being exposed to things that you didn't know existed? I think a lot of the times, like, we underestimate some of the things that may come your way, or we don't really know the gravity of some of the things that people may say. What was that like in the public eye, trying to figure out how to be restored? And did you even want to be restored? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it sucked. I ain't gonna lie to you. It sucked, man. I remember a time period where it was like, you wake up in the morning, you're about to start your day, and you are doing your best to avoid social media, and because you just know it's toxic. And then you open it for whatever reason, and you just see the most hateful venom spewed at you, and it's like, man, that just affected my whole day. And why did I let it? So I was like, I'm deleting these apps, and then you delete the apps, and then mail shows up to your office. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I mean, literally, like, hateful stuff, death threats, and then you avoid that, and you're just dealing with all types of things coming your way. So it's very frustrating because the public only has like part of the picture. Case in point is, I have a lot of professional athlete friends, and And I remember one of them was having a pretty terrible game. And I was just having a conversation with them like, man, what do you think it was? And he was like, oh, hands down, it was my marriage. And people would never assume that. They just think, you know, oh man, you know, his wrist, his leg, or he's not focused, or oh man, he's only after the money. Look at him, he's being lazy, and he's literally going through a marital crisis, which is affecting his game.
Right.
So I think that's the hard part about being in the public eye. There's so much stuff happening behind the scenes that the public doesn't know about, but they assume your every motive.
Yeah.
And so that made it very hard for me to trust.
Yeah.
Especially because most of this was coming from the mouths of Christians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
That's real. One thing I really wanted to ask is, you know, how did friends play a role in your restoration process? And I asked that because I saw this interview one time with Tadashi. I think he was at some church telling his story, and he gave a unique story of you guys having a conversation at a restaurant. And you kind of was like, yo, bro, what you're asking from God is straight up demonic. This is not how you should be moving or what have you. And I remember that really stood out to me because I was like, man, like that's so dope that they have a friendship where you could be that authentic and that real. And although you're loving him through the pain and the hurt of losing a child, you're still not compromising the truth of God. And so because, you know, like I personally want to be a better friend to those that are struggling or those that are fighting to be restored or fighting to bounce back. Like what kind of friendships did you have, and how did they help in the process?
You know, we all kind of came up together. We went to school together. We were navigating faith together. We came from, you know, pretty rebellious backgrounds. So it was all new territory for us, and we were experiencing all this together. We were seeing things for the first time, traveling to different countries for the first time together. And so a lot of things that, you know, we just experienced, you know, as kids, was a collective experience. So that made us tight. But then I think we had this, you know, this internal, like, we had this communication where we always would do what's called going through the tunnel of chaos or the tunnel of conflict, where you can't be afraid to like walk through that tunnel with somebody, even though it's going like, I don't know, it's going to inconvenience you, but it's necessary for y'all to stay a unit and for y'all to stay tight. And our philosophy, man, what I tell anybody is, don't try to fix your friends, face your friends. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't want somebody to fix you. Just face me, walk with me, and be with me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna say some off the wall stuff sometimes. You know what I mean? It don't try to correct every little thing I say. I need to know you're there with me. Even when I'm saying off the wall stuff, it's like, yo, what you saying is real stupid, but I'm gonna be here with you even through this stupid stuff you're talking about right now. And when the time is right, I'm gonna let you know, like, what you said was ridiculous, but I'm still here with you. You know what I mean? And everybody wants to be known. It's just we're afraid of people leaving us when they know who we truly are, and that's not real friendship.
No, that's real. That's real, man. I really love that the last few years of your life is being put into this album called Restoration. I wanted to ask, what gave you the confidence, the boldness, the courage to share your story with the world?
Honestly, man, when you experience like transformative change, it's hard to keep it to yourself. You know what I mean? You know, when Moses went up on the mountain and God revealed himself to Moses, his face was shining. And Moses didn't know his face was shining when he came down off the hill. It was like, yo, you glowing, B. Like, they were scared of him. And I think that's what happened for me. Is like, man, I've been spending so much good time with God, you know, and when I say that, I'm not saying curled up with a Bible in a corner. I'm saying like God has shown himself in so many different facets, through friendships, through his love, through therapy, through meditation, like all the things that I think people are afraid of, through music, so on and so forth. And man, I'm spending so much good time in those spaces and places that I'm shining, and I can't veil that glow. You know, I gotta expose it, and because I know it's healing for people, I know it's transformative for people. So I would have wanted somebody to get me out of the dark places.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do the same for others.
No, that's good. And you mentioned something key. You talked about it's not just reading your Bible and praying, but it is through friendships and therapy and maybe even working out. Like, can you speak?
All of that.
Can you speak on that? Because I think sometimes when people are going through it, the response from the church is you just need to pray more.
Oh yeah.
Or you just need to watch more podcasts or sermons, or man, you got to fast this one out. You know.
Yeah.
Like how holistic was your healing? Like.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's holistic.
Yeah.
And I think the problem specifically like within the church is the church doesn't recognize that all these things are means of healing and help and wholeness. Like they're all a part of our transformation and our growth.
Yeah.
We need to be more integrated and not, so segregated in terms of the processes for healing. And so I think if there was more integration, there's nothing wrong with science. Science is the discussion of how things are organized. The church can't be afraid of science. The church has to learn how to integrate science with what we now understand. There's a astronomist named Hugh Ross, and he's able to talk about black holes and galaxies, but he's also able to intertwine that with faith. Right? Sure, there's multiple dimensions. That doesn't have to be counterintuitive with what I believe.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say,
good.
therapy and the science of the mind and the brain, all those are things that God made. So why would we stave them back or just say, oh, that's a demon, let's pray for that? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? God has provided us with these tools and these resources for us to explore and to use. Nobody does that when it's time to, you got a headache, you take a Tylenol, right? You're really thirsty. The human has to drink water. You need 3 days before you die. Nobody says, just pray and your thirst will be quenched. You drink water. You know what I mean? So, so in the same way, I think we have to be more integrated in our thinking and our processing in order to experience the health and the healing that's necessary. And I did that, and I'm night and day different. Night and day.
Wow. Yeah. That's dope. It's man, praise God for the healing you've experienced and the restoration that you experienced. How do you want to kind of give back and help others find that same restoration? Has it given you a heart for those that are broken? You
Absolutely.
Walking through that? And
Absolutely.
If so, like what are the avenues and ways in which you want to help restore communities and individuals?
Oh man, I was reading Psalm 23 and David said, surely goodness and mercy will pursue me all the days of my life. And when you dig into the original language, the idea there is that goodness and mercy are going to hunt me, like a wolf hunting blood. Goodness and mercy's after me, and that's how I feel. I'm after people with goodness and mercy. I'm after people, letting them know like how good God is and that it's not over for them. I want the worst of the worst. I don't want people who have blown their life up. I don't know anybody who's blown their life up more than David, right? King David had one of his best friends, Uriah, murdered because he cheated with his wife. You know what I'm saying? And then his child dies afterward. Like he blew his life up, and God used it and made him better after. You know what I'm saying? So I want people who have crazy prison sentences. I want people on the third divorce. I want people who feel like, man, life is just, it's over for me. Because I want them to know, nah, it's not. This is not the end. Like God can restore the years the locusts have eaten. There's hope for you.
No, that's so good. That's so good. So one way you're bringing this is through your music. Is there other avenues that you have planned? What's next for you? Like this year, like how else do you want to kind of communicate all that God has done for you?
So I've been silently moving, without broadcasting a lot of the things that I'm involved in, because I want to see things restored. I want to see communities restored. I want to see wealth gaps restored in communities. And so there's things that I've been doing that are we're just now starting to talk about. Peace Preparatory Academy is a school in English Ave, which is one of the toughest areas in Atlanta. There hasn't been a school there in over 20 years. It's been labeled as the heroin capital of the South. And so I partnered with my buddy Benjamin Wills to help start a school in that community. So now there's a school there. It's been there for 5 years now. And that's restoration to me. That is, I don't have to I haven't had to broadcast it because I was doing the work, but now we want people to know what's going on. We want people to know what's happening with the school. Working in prisons and volunteering and just, you know, helping with that whole process, helping it to, you know, work through and talk through some of the implicit bias and the glass ceilings that exist for people of color, especially in the workforce. And so I've partnered with different organizations to help close some of those gaps and create more opportunities. And so these are things that have just been happening. You know, obviously there's the music. There's some film projects that I'm working on, and then there's a book that that will be released in the fall called "I Am Restored," how I lost my religion but found my faith.
Wow.
So there's things that are happening. They just all haven't been broadcasted.
Man, that's so beautiful. Well, we can't wait. It's about to be a good year. You're just taking the decade by storm, huh?
Lord willing.
Last question. For anybody that's listening right now that is hurt or broken or feel like they've just come to the end of themselves and they don't feel like there isn't any light at the end of the tunnel. For those that are listening to this and they can't, maybe they're in bed and they can't get out of bed, you know, or maybe they're just like in a hopeless situation and they feel like all is lost, all hope is lost. What would be your encouragement to that person listening right now?
I don't want to sell people dreams of grandeur. I want to be honest with people. I got a friend, Rasan, who's been in prison for 15 years, and he may not get out. But Rasan has had a moment when he was in prison where he realized he couldn't change his circumstances, but he could be changed in the midst of his circumstances. And so there's where the hope lies, is that you can have a new perspective. You can have a new outlook on things. He started taking financial literacy classes. He started taking literature classes, and now he writes, and his articles have been in major publications, Vice and GQ. He gives financial advice to his family members and he's created a financial legacy from behind prison walls. And now he co-hosts one of my favorite podcasts, which is Ear Hustle. And so what I would tell anybody is that your story's not over. You know what I mean? Some of the chapters right now are maybe ugly, but your story's not over, and it is nothing that God cannot restore. There's nothing that he cannot alter for your good. And so I would say to them, to hold on, to maintain hope in the midst of the pain, and to be reminded that God is for you, and he's near you, and there's hope for you.
No, that's so dope, man. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being vulnerable with your story.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your faithfulness. You know, I know there's probably moments or seasons you wanted to give up or throw in the towel, but your light is giving many people hope. And so I really appreciate you, and thank you for taking the time to be on Shaping the Culture.
Man, honored, bro. Sincerely.
For sure. Until next time, family, peace and grace.